Good morning, everybody. It's time for Morning Manna, and let's continue the conversation that I started on yesterday. I started this conversation about Juneteenth, holiday versus reparation. And I think because we have this tendency in the culture and in our to run into and out of things so quickly that we never really grasp the facts. We never really grasp the facts, and therefore we kind of take whatever we can get and we keep it moving, and or we don't let it linger, we don't let it marinate, we don't sit in it, that's why it never hits with us, because we never really sit in things. Well, I took yesterday was the rant. Yeah, yesterday was all about a rant. Today is the facts, and tomorrow we'll conclude with even more as to what's next. So that's what we're dealing with this morning. I need you to join in with me on this morning with the conversation that we're having. And the way I need you to do it, I need you to share it right now. Do not keep this to yourself, and share your comments as well. Share your comments as well, because that's the special edition of the Morning Manna. Yes, I could do this, that, or the other concerning our Morning Manna, but I prefer to get into this whole piece about Juneteenth, because, as I said, we don't sit in things long enough. We don't sit in it long enough. And I think it's very important that we do that we sit in this. And it is critically important that African Americans take the traditional role with respect to it is the man or woman of God, the man or woman of God in the house of God, wherever that might be, is the one that really is the arbiter of truth in our community and really helps us grab a hold of things. So this morning, it's the facts. It's the facts. So I want our audience to gather, and then we're going to head right into it. Greet a few people, and then the standard Morning Manna fam. But Morning Manna fam, I need you to share this. Good morning, Valerie. How are you? Good morning, Brenda. How are you? Ramona, how are you? Good morning, spiritual daughter Erica. How are you on this morning? Good morning, Jewel. Jewel, how are you on this morning? Wayne, how are you? Yvonne, how are you on this morning? Peggy, how are you? Elder Jan, how are you on this morning? Vicky, how are you? Gloria, how are you? Carolyn, how are you on this morning? Verena, how are you doing on this morning? Lena, how you doing, home girl? How is North Kakalaki? I hope all is well there. That's God's country. I always say that. God's country is North Carolina, my home state. Good morning, Ari. How are you, home girl? Dolores, how are you on this morning? Good morning, Sent. Minister Sent, how are you? Minister Sent, you going to the summit? I hope so. I hope so. You can't miss this. Can't miss this. Got a word. It's going to be a wonderful time there at the summit at Wisdom in Warner Robins, Georgia, middle of Georgia. That's where CLM is going. We're going to show up and show out with the Lord be our help. Good morning, Elder Mobley. How are you on this morning? Ella, Brother Nesbitt, how are you guys doing on this morning? Lydia, how are you on this morning? Look, this morning, what I want to do, we're going back. I don't want to do it. I need us to sit in this a little bit. We need to sit in this. We run into and out of things so often at church, at New Life. I often say, you know what? We run into Christmas and run right out of it. We run into Resurrection Sunday and run right out of it. We run into Pentecost Sunday and we run right out of it, and without sitting in it and really letting it resonate within us and marinate within us. So this morning, it is still Juneteenth, the holiday, versus reparations, the facts. Facts. It's all about. Yesterday I was ranting. I admit, I was ranting. Today I'm going to try to be a little bit more concise with my thinking and sharing on this morning. So let's jump right into it, and you can always share as well as I share. The whole piece is this. There's a call for African Americans to receive reparations because of the slavery that is rooted in the long history of injustice in our country. I want to raise these facts this morning, and that is the historical events of the Civil War, Juneteenth, Jim Crow, Plessy versus Ferguson, Brown versus education of Topeka, Kansas, and the broken promises of 40 acres and a mule. First, let's deal with number one, and you can put it in the chat area, the legacy of slavery. Millions. I recently just returned from Ghana, the Gold Coast, and realized again, I'd been there before, realized just how deeply rooted we are in being a great people. We don't have a middle anointing. We have a first anointing. I want you to grab this because he says that we are the first, the head, and not the tail. But when they grabbed us off of the coast from the slave castles of, Africa, then they brought us into by the millions through the Middle Passage. Millions died in the Middle Passage. Others died in the slave castles of which I walked on. The thickness, you could not see the bricks of the castle, of the floor, because of the excrements and the, how can I say it, in the women's part, where women literally were in the castle and in their period time, all had to do it right there in that place that they were put. Gotten to a point that they could then survive, wait for the ship to come in and go through the door of no return. I saw that. It is a powerful thing and it moves you. That's the history of slavery. Millions brought to this country, which brought about then the Civil War, 1861 through 1865. Now, it was fought over slavery. I mentioned it yesterday, I'll repeat it. It was not fought over culture, as it is now talked about so eloquently by conservatives and the daughters of the Confederates and all of that. Not at all. It was fought over slavery, not culture at all. So the South won the peace and lost the war. We have to regain the victory in the peace by restoring the narrative. Anybody takes your narrative has taken your life, because they now give you a narrative in which you repeat about yourself. Juneteenth is on the 19th of this month in 1865, when enslaved people in Texas learned of their emancipation 2 years later than it was already decreed and declared by Lincoln. 2 years. And in many respects, many of us who don't know our story is still learning about our emancipation. Then there is the broken promises, the fourth thing. I'm going through 10 things. The fourth thing is this: the broken promise of 40 acres and a mule. In 1865, General William T. Sherman issued a special field order. Because remember now, let's go back. Let's put it in context. When the Confederate South lost the war, the Union soldiers then took over the government of what was going on. Therefore, they was ruling because the elected officials were actually traitors against the Union and could not be trusted to administer the government. Therefore, the Union soldiers was running the South. This was, as a result of that, General William T. Sherman, famous march on the South, all the way down to Atlanta, through my hometown, in fact, issued an order, Field Order number 15, which carried which carried law. It was the law of the land, which promised 40 acres of land and a mule. It was just like a statute, if you will. It should have been carried out. The promise, though, was broken because at that time, when President Andrew Johnson, who stopped the whole piece about how we were to reclaim ourselves as a nation, he rescinded the order because of the outcry of white landowners. He rescinded the order. It only took place a little bit in South Carolina, and then it was rescinded. It was actually law. It was actual law. Carried the weight of a statute of law. But during Reconstruction, Andrew Johnson, who then connected with the conservative Democrats in the South to then get elected because there was a problem with the election. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? So when the electors came in from the state, sounds familiar, doesn't it? He then wanted to win, so he came in agreement that the electors, remember, it's not one man, one vote when we vote for the president. It's one man, one vote when it's the state, when it's the local. But when it gets to the federal government for the presidency, it's not one man, one vote. It is by electors. So you win the state, then those electors, based upon the population of the state, go to the federal government, and then they vote according to the popular vote win. Andrew Johnson says, no, I want to remain in. I want to stay in. I'm going to agree with Southern conservative Democrats over against Republicans, who was on the other side at that time. Says, well, you need to stop Reconstruction and this nonsense of 40 acres and a mule. Just one of the things. I need you to let that grab get a hold of you. I need that to sink in. Why? Because you see the same thing happening right now. The same thing. Now it's not conservative Democrats, it's conservative Republicans. When you don't know your history, you repeat it. And whoever wins the history wins the future. Get that. Whoever wins the history, whoever can tell the best story of the history, whoever's history is told better, is the one who determines the future. Plessy versus Ferguson. The sixth thing that I'm sharing with you on this morning. In 1896, the Supreme Court decision in Plessy versus Ferguson upheld the constitutionality of racial segregation. Can you believe that? It was the law, and the Constitution and the Supreme Court upheld it. 1896. It institutionalized racial discrimination. From that, we have the KKK. From that, we have what? Jim Crow. From that, let me circle back. I mentioned on yesterday, there's an African-American U.S. congressman who stated out of his mouth, I can't believe it. Let me hold back. I don't want to rant. I could not believe that that black man let out of his mouth that we were better in Jim Crow than we are right now. Good God Almighty, help me. Jesus, I can't believe that. But he said it in 2024, a few weeks ago. Come back, Bishop. Okay, then Brown versus Board of Education in 1954. That's 4 years before I was born. 4 years before I was born. In my lifetime. That case then overturned the case of 1896. So I want you to add up the years. You got 58 years of institutionalized racism. You got 58 years of legalized racism, plus almost 400 years of slavery. And then you want to ask me, do I want a holiday or do I want reparations? Give me a break. Give me a break. So the historical disparities, the eighth thing that I want to share with you, is still very clear. In 2019, the Federal Reserve said the median wealth of white families was nearly 8 times that of black families. The ninth thing that I want to share with you. The social and health inequities remain. They remain. You can draw a line from your health to your wealth to just how healthy you are. From your wealth to your health all day long. All day long. COVID showed us that in glaring pictures. We died disproportionately over against anybody else. Why? Because you can draw a straight line from your wealth to your health. Finally, what is the moral implications of this? We stick our chests out and we talk about how a wonderful, exceptional country we are, and we are. I wore the cloth of my country 21 and a half years. I served that we might be able to share and talk about things like this. The fact remains though, that reparations is the only way to go. It's the only way to go. Not because I need a handout. I don't need a handout. I need what is owed me. Give me a break. Don't make me feel like I'm some kind of, oh, how poor am I? Look at that. Here you all are again. Always want somebody to hand you out something. No, absolutely not. This is what you owe me. It's kind of like tithe. Tithe ain't given. It belongs to God. Reparations belongs to me. You owe me. Federal government. I ain't talking about your white friend. I'm not talking about my good friends. I have an awesome community, integrated community. Wonderful. I'm not talking about racism here. I'm not. I'm talking about if the government acted on behalf of the people, then the government has to act. It's by the people, for the people. That's what the government is. The government institutionalized these things. The government did these things. And therefore, the government pushed one race above the other. Everybody else got reparations but us. Finally, let's talk about what does those reparations look like? What does those reparations look like? One should be some direct financial payment. And you say, how can that be? How can that be? I mean, how can you make sure of that? How can you make sure of that? We do tax credits all the time. We do tax credits all the time. That ain't no big deal in our IRS code. It's not. Well, how do you make sure of that? Make sure of that. Now, somebody asked me on yesterday, said, now, Bishop, how do you talk more about how do you connect yourself to your past and know your slave history? Well, what I did, and I'm not reporting this, but I went and I got my whole thing done. And here it is. I'll just show you. I had it done. My whole thing. And found out a whole lot about my ancestry. Then I put it in my book, and I encourage you, here we go. I'll get it. There we go. I encourage you to get my book, Familish. The last chapter is about my history. Not trying to sell, just trying to give you a way in which you know your history. I can go all the way back to 1800, to Zelpha Bess. My great grandmother, all the way back to 1800. That's 60 some years before slavery. That's a few years after the Declaration of Independence. That's on my mother's side. On my father's side, not so much. I can only go back to 1879. I can only go back. Again, it's right here. And I did that to ancestry.com, and to know that. Saw the picture of the person that enslaved my family on my mother's side. That'll take you back. So go back and to any of those kinds of means online or what have you, and press in on that, lean in on that, find out that. That's how you would want to receive a reparation if that was be the case. You said, well, Bishop, everybody ain't got it like you. How would I do that? I want to argue that the government should help do that. The government should help do that. Why? I ain't asking for a handout. Give me what you owe me. Give me what you owe me. And that was taken from us. For 300 years or so, the wealth of this country was built on the back of slaves. Education and scholarships. I said it yesterday, I'll repeat it. It's a fact. One of the best ways to get ahead, and I say this in my church, Jesus and education, you're unstoppable. There should be education scholarships. There should be housing grants and subsidies for housing. I ain't talking about the projects. Give me a break. I ain't even talking about the projects. Affordable housing. Housing is a major piece. Unhoused people is a whole issue in and of itself. Fourth, health and wellness programs. As I said, you can draw a line from my wealth to my health and my health to my wealth. Fifth, community investments, community zones. There's some things like that right now. And then six, there should be a legal policy. Right now, this book is causing all kinds of disturbance. Why? This book purports, and rightfully so, that the laws of the country, even then to now, are construed so that those that are now in power, those that are now have wealth, will continue to have it, and those that do not will not. I encourage you to get this book. Read it. Read it. The other piece is there should be debt relief. There should be debt relief. Debt relief. Again, I'm not asking for something. I'm telling you what you already owe me. And then finally, for now, and then I'll end with more tomorrow. I'll have more tomorrow. It's business development. There's 3 ways that you can gain wealth. Only 3 ways. That is investment, okay, in equities, mutual funds, and that kind of real estate, or business, own your own business. Those are the 3 ways. That's how you produce wealth. Wealth goes from one generation to the other. Riches ends whenever that generation gets it. It doesn't transfer. I have more to say on tomorrow. Like I said, on yesterday, it was just straight out rant. Pull back today. Want to give you some straight up facts. And tomorrow, we're going to conclude with more. We're going to conclude with more. And I want you to grab this, and I need you to grab these kinds of pieces, because we have to sit in this. We have to sit in this. So often, like I said, what we do, we run in and out of things like Juneteenth, things like Christmas, Easter, Pentecost Sunday. We run in and out of those things, and we don't sit in them so that we can grab it. And today, I want you to sit in Juneteenth. Tomorrow, we'll kind of conclude the whole matter. God bless you. If this bless you, bless somebody else. Don't keep it to yourself. I'll see you tomorrow morning with more Morning Manna. God bless you. Bye now.